Hello and welcome to another dungeon boss guide with me, Meoni. So here's a bite-sized boss guide for Hell's Lid, a new dungeon added in patch 4.2. Once you have made your way to the first boss through the trash, you face off against Akamaru. This large fire golem has 4 moves. The first move, a 100-ton swing, is signified by the boss actually raising his arm upwards. Just don't be in melee range to avoid this attack. If you do get hit, you get knocked back and get a vulnerability debuff. 10-ton slash, the boss now targets someone at random and will attack them with a large conal attack. Move away from this. Liquid carapace is where the boss targets a player, tosses his weapons around the room, and begins to follow the player across the platform wherever they move, splurting out magma as he goes. If you get targeted, move away from the boss and avoid bringing fire through your teammates. And finally, Akamaru's weapons. The weapons he threw away during liquid carapace will now be leapt to by the boss. After he leaps to the second weapon, he'll do a large-scale melee AoE. So as he's jumping, just keep away from him and you'll be fine. Throughout the fight, you also have to avoid rocks that fall from the cave ceiling, which makes circular AoEs to move from. But that's the boss in a nutshell. Next up, past more trash, is Kimitachi. This Weasley Weasel will do essentially 5 things to try and mess your face up. Firstly, Whipping Witchret. This is a cleave in front of the boss that has no cast time or bar signifying it. Simply tank it facing away from your group. The Wind Begins to Howl, also shown on screen with the same name in a text pop-up. This ability leaves your choice of safe zone either at max range or immediately under the boss's feet in melee and nowhere in between on this donut shape. Thirdly, the Patient Blade. This is an 180 degree AoE to avoid. If you stand closer to the boss during the fight, it's going to be easier to move from Patient Blade in time. His fourth ability is the Wind Shifts. This text box pop-up signifies a large column AoE appearing on screen. Stand either side of it to avoid getting hit by this. And finally, Whisper in the Wind. This involves ants that spawn, the tank needs to pick them up, and each one drops circular AoEs to avoid on the floor. Wind Orbs, which are green puddles that do damage if you run into them and do a knockback to avoid. 4 tornadoes that spawn around a room and travel the circumference of the arena to also avoid, which the boss sometimes tethers to with a bright orange line. Do not stand in these lines or the boss will destroy you as it dashes between them. And finally, Reaper's Gale. When the combo of attacks end for this phase, one tornado stays behind and the others fade. Run away from this proximity marker to reduce the amount of damage you take, and that's the boss dead. And finally, the last boss, Genbu, or Auspice Yoda if you prefer. 5 attacks, one is a combo phase. Firstly, Caduceus. This is a nasty cleave that does massive damage, has no cast bar, and cooldowns will likely be needed by your healer on this move. Hell of Water. This is an AoE in a cross shape. The center of the cross is where the boss is currently standing. Stand anywhere other than the cross. Hell of Waste. This is an orange marker circular AoE that goes on a player's head. Move this from other players as it drops. And Sinister Tide, which makes the floor glow with arrows as a blue ball prepares to travel the direction the arrows are facing from its current position. This ball only stops when it reaches the edge of the arena, so you need to figure out its path quickly and stand where the ball isn't going to go to avoid the damage. And finally, a combo phase with Hell of Waves and something called the Chelonian Gate. Hell of Waves will knock you back, and then he uses Chelonian Gate where the boss is now invulnerable and summons a gate ad to shield himself. Kill the gate ad before the new meter on the screen fills to 100% to be able to attack and kill the boss. If it reaches 100%, everyone instantly dies. And that wraps up the Hell's Lid dungeon. Hopefully this bite-sized guide was helpful in some way to you. Thank you kindly for watching, and I'll see you all next time.